So what we're going to do here today is we're going to cook a bone-in Frenched pork chop. One of the easy things about this recipe is this is something where you can take the meat in the morning and trim it, put your rub on it or brine it, put it in your refrigerator. You can go to work, come home, light your smoker, take your clothes off, mix you a drink, take your meat out, season it, put it on the smoker, sit back, enjoy your drink, and in 30 minutes, you've got something that you can impress your friends, your family, your neighbors with. Be the envy of the neighborhood. We're going to pull some Royal Oak All-Natural Charcoal in there. Easy open bag. You go ahead and pour it into our charcoal basket. We're gonna put in these all-natural tumbleweeds that Royal Oak makes. They're the easiest way for us to light a fire. So what we're gonna do is just gonna let this fire basket come up to temperature, coals get going, and then we're gonna put it into the smoker. Don't grab a live fire at home with your bare hands. Use a hook, put it in there. What we're gonna do first is we're gonna remove some of this Sinew Cap that's on the top, this elastin that's on here, this membrane. A lot of times it doesn't allow your rub to penetrate or your brine when you put it on there, so we just go ahead and do a quick trim on it, but that's pretty much about it. Moving this membrane, like I said, it allows your brine or your rub to penetrate the meat a lot easier, plus it makes for a more pleasurable eating experience as well. If you ask your butcher will do this for you as well. I just kind of prefer to do it myself at the house. It's quick, it's easy. It's a nice whole loin, bone-in, French style. So now I'm gonna show you two different ways to help make your meat more flavorful and more moist. The first way I'm gonna show you is actually a wet brine. It's really simple. You can put pretty much anything you want into this wet brine. Mine, I try to keep it very simple. Basically, it's a gallon of water, half a cup of regular table salt, and a half a cup of brown sugar. Start out, I use a plastic bag at home. It's just easier because it's a lot less cleanup. I'm one of these people that believes that less is more. But I'll start out by pouring in a gallon of water into a plastic bag. This is a 2-gallon Ziploc bag that you can find at your supermarket. Once I do that, add my half a cup of regular table salt, and this is a half a cup of light brown sugar. You can use dark brown sugar, light brown sugar, table sugar, it doesn't matter. I preferably like cooking with this sugar because it does have a little bit of molasses taste to it, and I think it kind of helps on the outside of the meat when we go to put the rub on it. It helps build our bark up, or that crust that we're always looking for. So just put that in the bag, give it a quick zip, give it a quick shake, and then take my bone-in rack pork chop, put it into the brine, and you see why I needed a 2-gallon bag. So what I'll do is I'll zip it almost all the way down, let out as much air as I can out of this bag, and I'll put this into a refrigerator in a pan in case it starts to leak, and that way you don't ruin your refrigerator. But I'll leave it in the refrigerator anywhere from 6 hours to overnight. Really doesn't matter. There's no really bad start time or end time. Next method I'd like to talk to you about is called a dry brine. Basically, you take your French rack pork and you take your favorite rub. Mine happens to be the Redneck Barbecue Labs all-purpose seasoning. And we take it and we season this meat liberally. Means put a good coat on it. And once we get a medium coat on this, and after I patted it in, I like to take it and I put it back into a pan. And kind of the same thing like we do with the wet brine. I like to put this in a refrigerator for anywhere from 6 hours to 24 hours. Just let it sit. What happens is a lot of salt that's in the rub goes inside the meat, and proteins start coming to the surface, and they start combining with a lot of the other ingredients we have on here to kind of forms this natural base, this wet base on top. And once that wet base hits the smoke and hits the heat, it'll form that pellicle, that crust that we affectionately call bark. This smoker's ready to go. Not only can I feel the heat coming off of it, but I can smell it. It's a nice clean smoke. It's not acrid, there's no gray smoke coming out of it. A lot of times in barbecue we call a thin blue smoke, and what you're seeing right now is what we call a thin blue smoke. We want to have a product in there that complements and even adds to what we're trying to do. Now this is something, I mean, you don't do on every one of them, but I like to put a water pan in this. It kind of helps regulate my temperature and gives me a hot zone and a cold zone in this particular smoker. So now we've got our meat ready, we've got our smoker ready. The last thing I like to do before I put my meat on is this Royal Oak charcoal. Like I said before, it's made out of hardwoods with a little bit of vegetable oil binder in it, but I like to add just a touch more flavor, wood flavor to it. So the last thing I do before I put my meat on is I put one small chunk of wood on, which I'm going to do right now. And then I'm going to put my bone-in racks on. I like to start them fat side down. The last thing I like to do is like to put a probe in one, just to kind of tell me what my temperature is. Speaking of temperature on these pork loins, the USDA now allows us to cook pork up to 145 degrees, they say is done. So the target temperature we're actually looking for in this pork loin is the same. We're looking for a pork loin of about 145 degrees. We pull it, it's going to finish at a safe temperature of 150 degrees. So today we're cooking on this particular barrel smoker here in between 300 and 325 degrees. The reason we're doing this is the pork loin that we're cooking today is a very delicate piece of meat. It doesn't have a lot of connective tissue and not a lot of collagen and fat that we need to break down slowly. And the reason we like to break down that collagen and fat slowly, like say a pork shoulder is that when you heat that collagen and that connective tissue up too quickly, it becomes rubbery and it doesn't break down. So we don't have to worry about that today. There's very little of that in a pork loin. So we want to cook it hot, we want to cook it fast. We want to get it up to temperature, we want to let it rest, and then we want to cut it and serve it as quickly as possible. Think about cooking you a nice ribeye. That's basically what this pork chop is today. We're about halfway through our cooking time right now, and I've got these whole bone-in pork chops resting fat side down. Now I want to flip them over and put some color on the other side. So we're going to take a quick sneak peek and see what's going on in here. Starting to get happy in here. I like that. One of the other things I do is I rotate my meat in the smoker. That's one of the tips at home. Sometimes certain parts of the smokers burn hotter than the others, so I always rotate it halfway around just to kind of take that variable out of play. So these are looking good. You can start to see some of the marrow, some of the myoglobin weeping out of these bones, so we know they're getting hot inside. They're around 95 degrees right now. We're going to take them up to about 142, 145. We're going to pull those off. We're going to put a little bit of light sauce on them. We're going to return them to the smoker, and then the worst part is we're going to pull them off and let them rest a little bit before we cut them. So our pork loins have come up to about 143 degrees right now. So what I want to do is I want to take them out and I want to put a little glaze on them. The glaze will kind of like set on the outside, give it a little sweetness, and also makes them look a little bit more prettier. So we're going to go ahead and start pulling them out. And as you can see, the colors on them, we like this. This stuff that's coming out of the bone right here is marrow and myoglobin, is indicating that they're cooking from the inside. They've got a beautiful color, and what you guys can't see is the smell. Let me tell you, they smell really wonderful. So just gonna put them in a pan right now. And then I'm gonna apply my Redneck Scientific barbecue sauce to it to give it just a light glaze. You can use any kind of barbecue sauce you want. The reason I like this sauce is it's got a little sweet, a little heat, a little pepper, and a little vinegar. So I just put just a little on top of it. I'm not looking for a big thick coat. You know, guys, you can always put more on later on, but I just want to get just a little bit on it. And the last thing I want to do, this is it's a little glaze I like putting on. It's one of the things we use in competition sometimes. And I like putting it on top of my rub and my sauce. It just gives it a little bit of extra flavor. It's got a little fruit juice in it. Just kind of kicks it up a little bit more. So Now that I've got these sauced and looking really good, I just want to throw them on the smoker for a little bit. I'm gonna let the sauce kind of tack up. Tack up means get kind of sticky on it. And once they get kind of tacked up and sticky, I'm gonna pull them back off and we'll slice them. So our pork loin's been on now for about 5 minutes with that glaze on it. It's setting really nice and stuff, looks really good. Last thing I want to do is I want to take a thermometer and I just want to check the internal temperature. The temperature we're looking for here is about 150 degrees. The USDA says 145 is great. I like mine about 150 degrees, no more, no less. So what I like to do is catch them right before 150, and then I like to pull them off to the side, put a piece of aluminum foil over them and let them rest. So let's see what we got. So we are looking at 148 degrees, and that's about a perfect time to pull this bone-in pork loin. Let's check the other one. 150, so I really need to pull that one off right now. That one's perfect. We're gonna have a little bit of carryover. Hopefully it won't be too much, but these things, you can't smell them, but they just smell great. That hickory charcoal is on them and I can just smell it right now and I'm getting hungry. So we're gonna go ahead and put these out. So now we pulled off these beautiful pork loins, and now's the hardest part in barbecue. We need to let these rest a little bit. Your meat really does better resting. It's got all this heat on it right now, so it's really like expanded and there's a lot of energy in it right now. Resting just basically lets the muscle relax a little bit and lets the juices kind of dissipate through it, and it gives you a better product. If I was to cut in this right now, I'd probably lose a lot of my moisture. I'm just gonna cover it in a piece of aluminum foil, 5 or 10 minutes, and this will be so much better. All right, it's Christmas time. We've let this bone-in pork rest now for about 5 minutes. It's been tough, but hopefully it'll be worth it. So go ahead and take off my aluminum foil. You can actually see some of the juices that have came out, but right now we're hoping most of the juices stayed in. We're about to find out. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this roast. Man, it smells good. You can just smell this charcoal flavor in this meat. You can smell the rub, you can smell the sauce, you can smell everything. Best part about it is this right here. This is what we worked hard for all day long, this first bite. And the first bite always goes to the cook. Just don't tell my wife that. And that's what we want. It's tender, it's juicy. We've got that hickory charcoal flavor on there and that rub. It just all comes together. The only thing I need right now is a napkin. So there you have it, guys. It's a really simple recipe to do with a little preparation, a little bit of time, and a little bit of patience. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe. My name is Jerry Stephenson, the owner of the Redneck Barbecue Lab, and I thoroughly approve this pork chop.